I don't know how many of you remember going to the movies when you were a kid, and they showed the serial in between, and it always cut off with somebody just at the edge of the cliff going to fall over. And you had to come back again next week to find out what was going to happen next. Thanks a lot, Jim. So last Sunday's reading was Jesus returned to Nazareth after he had begun his mission. And in the first half of this story, he went to the synagogue and read from the scroll of the prophet Isaiah, including the well-known passage that begins, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me." Today's reading is the rest of that story, and specifically, it's about the reaction of the people of Nazareth, Jesus' hometown, to one of their own as a prophet. And I suppose you heard in the children's story the shift in opinion as the story unfolds. Initially, everybody spoke well of him, and they were amazed at his gracious words. And by the end of the story, the people are so angry that they want to throw Jesus off a cliff. The change of opinion comes after Jesus challenges them directly. This was a culture where authority traditionally was bestowed by the community on an individual. No one could take that authority for themselves. And Jesus challenges this tradition and then uses the Old Testament prophets, Elijah and Elisha, to further imply that true prophets of God are not bound by a particular community or even by a religious institution. And so once again, we see Jesus living and teaching from a place of wisdom that's grounded in love, rather than in a wisdom that's grounded in convention or tradition. So I'm going to read from Luke chapter 4, verses 21 to 30, and this is sort of the official version. After reading from the scroll of the prophet Isaiah, with the eyes of all in the synagogue fixed on him, he said, "Today, this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. They said, "Isn't this Joseph's son?" And Jesus said to them, "Doubtless you will quote to me this proverb, 'Doctor, cure yourself.' And you will say, 'Do here in your hometown the things that we've heard you did at Capernaum.' I tell you, no prophet is accepted in the prophet's hometown." The truth is, there were many widows in Israel at the time of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up for 3 years and 6 months, and there was a severe famine over all the land. And yet Elijah was sent to none of them, except to a widow at Zarephath in Sidon, who was not an Israelite. There were also many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elisha, and none of them was cleansed, except Naaman the Syrian. And when those in the synagogue heard this, they were filled with rage. They got up, drove him out of the town, led him to the brow of the hill on which their town was built, so that they might hurl him off the cliff. But he passed through the midst of them and went on his way. Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.